Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Hello, hello. I think we are have several people sign up for today, and I think that there's still some people missing, but they will hopefully join us. And today I'm here to share a little bit about our programs with you all, answer any questions that you may have, and give you a little perspective of what our school offers that's a little different from some other online courses you may have seen in the past. I will be reviewing some notes for discussion topics. I'm also going to invite anyone to ask questions as things come up. You can stop me at any time. Paul Bergner is supposed to join us, so hopefully he'll be here shortly. Um, I'll just start off by introducing myself a little bit so you know who I am. Um, I have been running this school for 9 years. But prior to that, I've actually been practicing as a clinician in herbal medicine for more than 25 years. Um, I've had some wonderful case stories in transformations of health. I do believe that my experience is mostly based on what I witness in client transformations. Oh, here comes Paul. He's in the waiting room. Hang on, let me just let him in real quick. And I'll get rid of the waiting room so that anyone who's late can join us. Here we are. Okay. So I will say that Paul Bergner, who is just now joining us, hi, Paul. He was my primary mentor through the North American Institute of Medical Herbalism more than 25 years ago. He is a valued and respected mentor in herbal medicine worldwide. I'm very honored that I was able to mentor with him directly. And I've used a lot of the teachings of vitalist principles that were passed down through our nature cure lineage in our school practice. So, what else to say about me? My joy in life is watching students transform, giving them the tools to empower their own health and well-being, and then to carry that forth based on personal experience to take care of the health of others. That's really what we're here for. I do believe that herbal medicine opens a world of engagement with nature, which is healing in itself. But when we step on the path of learning to use herbs, it's not just about herb walks and medicine making. I believe that it's about using those tools to help support our communities and, of course, help ourselves and our family members. So, at whatever level that you hope to become an herbalist, we hope to support you on that journey to the best of our ability. So, before I go on, Paul, do you want to say a few words of introduction about yourself?
I'm not sure what to say. I've been doing this since 1973. I've been teaching people nature cure principles since 1973. The first 7 years of my practice, I taught that inside prisons and in drug rehab programs. I was visited more than 7 prisons where one of them I had regular ongoing classes teaching nature cure principles to prisoners. And I this was the beginning of my training. I was trained in a variant of nature cure that came through India, sort of a combination of uh, nature cure from Germany and yoga from India. And then now, the first, I'm going to explain vitalism in a certain way. Basically, I taught classes to people in medical self-care. So I'd have 20 people in a class, and they'd learn some meditation and some yoga, and move toward a whole foods diet. They learn some hydrotherapy to, support their immunity uh, and pretty simple, basic stuff. But then also, that when you're doing meditation and yoga, you're developing intention and will, and that's a very important part of vitalism to be able to make an intention and have enough vitality to move forward with your intentions. But I saw people get better from all manner of things with that, with no herbs.
Mm.
There were no herbs, right? And so for the first 5 years, there weren't any herbs. And then Mainly, so you see, well, okay, I just described what it is, and some people transform. So this was my understanding of medicine. Now, later, about 10 years later, 15 years later, I went to a naturopathic medical college in Oregon, and I got to meet the gray-haired elders of that profession who had been using simple, basic cures, just like what I was talking about with the prisoners, for their medical careers, some of them for 40 and 50 years, right? And they, so there's a certain knowledge when someone has for 50 years been using methods and seeing people get better with it, they can transmit to you a certain amount of faith that it's going to work, right? They'll say, "Oh yeah, you can da 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 da," and but you feel it's that, "Oh yeah, they have a 2 generations of experience behind them saying that," and so I was very inspired. I will say at the time, the naturopathic profession was in transition from traditional nature cure to what it is today, which is modern kind of scientific, we call it green allopathic medicine. It was in transition. So there were tensions in the curriculum, in the faculty. And we had this one man come, this Dr. Dick, Dr. Harold Dick, came and he was uh, he was horrified by the direction that the profession was going because it was going to be, oh, this is all scientific, but does it really work? Um, I like to make the distinction. You can study soil science or you can study gardening, right? But the soil scientist with a degree, even a PhD, will never be able to grow a garden unless they get trained by a gardener, right? You appreciate? So this is a lot of this has to do with medical education. So what these elders were, those were people who had been working in the garden of nature cure for a couple of generations, right? And this one guy came, and this rocked my entire life. The guy came. I mean, I was already sort of my 1 foot in my early experiences with nature cure, and 1 foot in getting a medical degree. And this guy came, Dr. Dick, and he had his medical degree, but he was horrified by the changes that people were losing their roots. They were losing the fundamental methods of nature cure. So he came every year and did a weekend seminar with a slideshow of his cured patients. I'm talking about people with arthritis in almost every joint in their body who can hardly get out of bed, right? And that's the before picture, the after picture, dancing with his wife at a ball, right? And this makes me cry. Yes, excuse me. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, that slideshow was worth a whole medical degree because he was showing things that worked from the gardener's perspective, right? And some of what he was teaching, the core methods he was teaching, were things that I had already found worked in my life, right? But that weren't even being taught in the naturopathic college anymore, right? And that was like being struck by lightning to see that slideshow. I could do my own slideshow now, right?
Yeah.
And we could do one out of our clinic at this school. We could do a slideshow of the before and after from this clinic, and that would blow your mind, right? I hope you sense, you can hear my tone. I'm not speaking from a place of inflation. Speaking from a place of, I'm telling the truth, right? We have methods that will help somebody with the blahs. They feel sick and tired, and they have for a long time, and then they feel vital and inspired, and they're on their path, and they, have that. And people who are, we had a young man a few years ago. He was 20% underweight, a teenager with a really bad diet on multiple antidepressant drugs and suicidally depressed, right? And 10 months unemployable. 10 months later, this guy was thriving,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Actually, he was crippled with a connective tissue degenerative disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was an amazing journey. And I'll tell you, though, I want to add to that story, Paul, is that that transformation didn't happen with just one visit.
No, no.
We had to work with someone, that person in particular, we worked with for 10 months. So I want to emphasize the point here that, very much modern herbal medicine, someone comes to an herbalist and they say, oh, I've got these things, help me out. And you give them a remedy, they go away, and you have no idea if it worked or if they got better. And so what we want to do is we want to hold that space with them and carry them through the journey. That requires multiple visits, and it requires a certain set of clinical skills to be able to usher a transformation like that. Sorry to interrupt, Paul, but
Yeah, that's
a
okay. Okay.
powerful story.
Yeah, but well, that's not just one. I've I'm I'm the luckiest teacher in the world. Usually, a teacher um, they teach their students, and then the students either pass or fail a final exam, and that's how the teacher judges what kind of a job they did, right? And starting in 1996, in at the Rocky Mountain Center for Botanical Studies in Boulder, Colorado, I was put in charge of a clinical program, and I had to devise the preclinical education. Right, it was ended up being 400 hours of preclinical education, and then we had a free clinic, and the the graduates would start to see the patients in the clinic, and then they would write up their case, right? And then all the clinicians and the faculty would get together and read the cases,
Mhm.
right? So uh, we have a saying in training of an herbalist, it's all theoretical until the first follow-up, right? Like you heard that saw palmetto is good for prostate disorders, right? Now that's a piece of your knowledge or something. But if you ever actually have a series of people with prostate disorders and you give them saw palmetto, it really doesn't do very much, right? So theoretically, it's sort of herbally correct, saw palmetto for prostate disorders. But if you're actually out working in the garden, it doesn't work. And it turns out there's scientific studies that show it doesn't work either for that. So you learn this on the follow-up. It's all your knowledge and everything. Then you start to see the results. And when you get the case, and then then you have a follow-up, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and you're learning not just what works and what doesn't, you're learning clinical arts. Well, like, did you take the medicine? Well, actually, no. Well, why not? Oh, because it tasted bad. Oh my gosh, I forgot to deliver it in a syrup, right? You're learning, all right? You negotiate with the person. What are your, what's holding you back? Right? This is this is as important as what herb you give, is that you engage the person and you understand. You have a trusting relationship with them, a safe relationship with them, and they can talk what's going on with them, and then you can modify the plan each week, right? These are clinical arts that you can't ever learn out of a book. Yeah, you learn this by, by doing, okay? Um, before you're all intimidated, why I'm the luckiest herbalist in the world is because since 1996, very few exceptions, I've read every case of every clinical graduate at that school, at my NIMH when it was in Boulder, and the successor school, they bought my school. I've read every follow-up of every person since 1996. And then starting 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, at the ACORN clinic, the same thing. So uh, one person is limited in the experience they can have, but I have been greedy for case-based learning, right? And so I've read every case in those clinic and given my feedback on it and mentoring on it and everything. But I've seen a whole lot of things. I've seen what works and what doesn't, and what sort of nuances of clinical arts you need to actually be successful in coaching somebody, eliciting the vital kind of response or resurrection from them and their healing. Now, I want to say before you're intimidated by this clinical interview and everything, I'm going to ask, what is a follow-up? What is a follow-up? Well, you read in the book, peppermint was supposed to do X, right? Somebody took some peppermint and will say, well, how was that for you? What did it do? And they go, oh, it helped my indigestion. Okay. That's a stranger on the street. That's somebody in the grocery line, right? That's the that counts as a follow-up. Okay. Now, what if you're in a community of students in a school? Our name for this, we call it community learning, right?
Mhm.
Is you have 15, 18 classmates and you're all experimenting with herbs, right? And you don't have to sit through lectures, right? Because at this school, did you describe the flipped classroom?
Not yet. No, we haven't gotten. We're still just doing introductions. I'll go into the flipped classroom
Flipped
model.
classroom, this is something they started doing at the Ivy League schools back in the 90s. But the standard classroom is you go and there's talking heads,
Mhm.
nodding heads, no, he's falling asleep, right? Talking heads, nodding heads, scribbling notes, whatever. And then you go home and you do your homework and you study for the exam, right? Um, the flipped classroom is now that we have media, we have audio and we have video, right? You watch the lecture on your own time
Mhm.
at home. Watching the lecture or listening to the lecture is your homework, right? And then you come to class and everyone's on the same page when you come to class. And now you do applications, questions and answers, and so on, right? Now, I have to say, as an educator, I've been an educator of one sort or another since 1973, and uh, the educational science, if somebody listens to a lecture, now this is if they're not allowed to take notes, listens to a lecture one day for 20 minutes, 24 hours later, they have lost more than 90% of that. They can't recall it,
Mhm.
right? So one of the problems with that is, well, I mean, it was 2 o'clock on a warm summer day in the classroom, and I just had a big lunch and I just couldn't take it in, right? So the thing with the flipped classroom, you get all your courses, they're audio lectures. They're audio lectures of a curriculum that I developed beginning in 1996, right? And with one class after another, after another, after another, after another. Oh, the other reason why I'm one of the luckiest herbalists in the world, my feedback on whether I was successful or not, because I developed curriculum and then I supervised their cases and I saw whether the patients got better or not, right? My feedback was the actual real world outcome,
Mhm.
not a grade on a test. And I learned so much about that, you know. I learned, well, say by the second year, I says, you know, they're not learning the piece about food intolerance well enough. I'm going to teach that better next year,
Mhm.
right? The next time I said, you know, they're all supposed to read the cases before they come, but I think they're not actually reading the cases before at end of the week, everybody comes together and discusses all the cases in the clinic. So you learn from your cases and all your classmates' cases. It's called a follow-up multiplier, right? You get to learn from all the follow-ups in the clinic. Okay. Um, and yeah. Okay. So you come into school, you're in the first year, you're not going to wait for clinical experience. The first day of class, we're going to pass around a tea or a tincture, and you all are going to sample it. And then you're going to share what it did, what your experience with it was. Do you know what, if you're sitting in a room with 16 people, do you know what that counts as? 16 follow-ups. In the real world, those are follow-ups, right? You give somebody an herb, they come back the next week and they say, da, 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 da. No, give somebody an herb, 10 minutes later, they say, well, it made me feel warm and it made my pulse speed up. That counts as a follow-up, right? And not only that, 16 follow-ups. So we do this, the students are engaged in sampling herbs, sharing the results, making changes in their own life, sharing the results. And so we call that community learning. And it counts as clinical learning because every time somebody comes and tells you, I cut out dairy and I haven't had a migraine headache since, you go, oh, what? Boom, right? And by the way, I've seen at least 50 migraine headaches cured with removal of a food intolerance. right? So cured, gone. They don't get migraines anymore. So um, you'll learn a lot of things like that, right? But so the point is at ACORN School, we build a community of students who are doing the practices that they might later are going to recommend to other people to do, like dietary changes and so on. And I want to say something. We are not fanatical. We're not dogmatic. We do not lay down, oh, you have to follow these rules or right? You're gonna be sick the rest of your life. We do not do that, right? This is the actual real life is diverse. Real life is flexible. Real life is a dance between motivation, understanding, ability to comply, obstacles, financial obstacles. Oh, I want you all to eat nothing but grass-fed lamb, right, for the next 6 weeks. The person goes out in the Four Corners area. Really, right? So the all manner of flexibility that we need. And I'll say if there was one principle that we have of dietetics, number one, over those, that's now something like I was approaching 30 years of supervising those cases. Every year I become more firmly understanding how important dietetics is for somebody to recover from a disease, chronic disease. There was a saying of Hippocrates, if the Hippocratic corpus, that guy Hippocrates, he never actually wrote anything. Did you all know that? That was all stuff from Egypt and Mesopotamia, right? So he the yeah, it didn't take some white guy with a beard to discover the principles of medicine when Egypt had 3,000, 4,000 years of sophisticated medicine already in place, right? So, okay. The where was I going? Hey, this a saying though from that era was when the father of the illness is not known, the mother is always the diet. The father of the illness may not known, but the mother is always in the diet. And we become more and more convinced of that. And my one philosophy, and this is a philosophy from an ancient book, right? Uh, says the reason medicine succeeds, this is from a book written 500 BC. The reason medicine arose is because people observed that the diet that was good for one person caused harm in another, right? And that where one person could eat large meals, another person had to eat small meals, right? And at different ages of life, the things happen. And they say the task of medicine is to find for that individual the diet that helps them thrive. Okay. Do you understand why I'm saying that nutrition is so full of dogma and theory, and I'm in this camp and I'm in that camp and all of that? So anyway, we have lots of dietary tools. We have a lot of things we've learned from people recovering from, for instance, that book from 500 BC. It says right in that book, it will be found that for some people, eating cow's milk causes disease, and merely doubling their daily dose will cause the onset of a major illness. Right? 500 BC. Okay. So this is the dietetics. We want to find, this is our method of vitalism since that time, to find the diet that's correct for that person. Timing of meals, size of meals, irritating foods, foods that give you gas, whatever, you remove it, right? So anyway, so when you come in as a cohort, the students, you'll be doing that quest while you're a student, right? We'll teach you things, and you'll be doing that quest while you're a student, and you will witness the changes in each other, right? And in yourself. And I've probably about run out of air right now. Should we, is that a good introduction to, it's the idea of the flipped classroom. You can listen to the lecture at 11 o'clock at night in your pajamas if you want. If that's when the doors are open for you. You know what? Will say the one more thing. I've taught in classrooms since the 70s, right? I taught nutrition in the university, right, for 7 years, and but so I've taught a lot like that. And uh, in t- I in 2006, I started uh, distance learning audio courses, right? And I was thinking, oh yeah, some people want this because they can't come to school, but they'll never really learn it. And I developed the whole program is now available on audio, which is the unflipped part of the education at ACORN is that whole we have the whole 650 hours of curriculum that evolved over those years. But I found out within 5 years the distance learning students were learning it better than my classroom students. It sounds incredible. It sounds unbelievable, but I will say why. None. You can listen to it as many times as you want, right? You get instant replay. And when you wake up in the night, what was that he said about Black Cohosh? You can go to the tape and find the track, right? It's something you absolutely cannot do in a standard classroom setting. Right. And the one I polled students like that. On average, they had listened to the audio 3 times. That meant some of them listened to the audio 4 or 5 times. Right. Uh, One man, he was a chiropractor, and he got. We have a course called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is pathological root of diabetes and heart disease and a lot of our modern illness. And he uh, he told me that he listened to the whole course 3 times, and then he went through it to answer the questions. But while he was listening to the course 3 times, he cured his brother's elevated cholesterol and his mother's diabetes with the methods that he was learning there, right? But so this is the value. The other thing with the audio learning, you have those lectures for life. Those are yours for life. It isn't like you paid a bunch of money to a university and that lecture is long gone and forgotten, right? You have these lectures for the rest of your life. You can go back to them anytime. So, um, I uh, I guess I'll pause. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you. And as you may have witnessed already, Paul's speeches and lectures are inspirational and fun. You say the word lecture and it sounds boring, right? But no, it's like imagine listening to your favorite podcast with heart and humor. That's how Paul's audios are. So
In tears. Yeah.
and tears. It's engaging and inspiring. And so that just wanted to say, Paul spent a lot of time talking about nutrition and that is an important piece of vitalist medicine. I don't want to underestimate the power of herbs because we are an herb school, but the principle is that we are applying herbs in the context of the greater holistic lifestyle. What are the determinants of health in one's individual life? And when we look at the whole picture and we can tweak, oh, we see that you're not moving your body. How can we support that? Or you're not getting the right diet for you. How can we support that? And then we apply herbs to that paradigm. It is miraculous and transformative.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll continue. And there was one thing I was saying. My original experience that 7 years, or actually 5 years, using just Nature Cure, right? And saw so many people get better. Then I moved to Taos, New Mexico. I got a job in the local food co-op as a manager. They had 3 managers. So I was low manager on the totem pole. So they made me run the herb department, which nobody else wanted to. And I had this department with 80 herbs there. And I ordered a library of all the books in print in 1978 on herbs. There were 7 books in print on herbs in 1978, right? And put a little library in there. And then I learned to buy and sell good quality. Like the peppermint would come in the door and it didn't smell much like peppermint, I'd send it back. So anyway, I learned those 80 herbs with the books and I started helping people over the counter. But you see, in the history arranged it that I learned the Nature Cure paradigm first, and then I learned the herbs, and you can apply the herbs in that paradigm. I'm going to give you an example of that because one of my most important mentors, his name was Wade Boyle. He was a naturopathic doctor, an herbalist, and full-time treated cancer people in the Pittsburgh area, people with cancer and that. And but he kind of rocked my world in that early period when I was meeting elders, and he said, "Oh, herbal medicine just means you're using herbs, right? That's all it means. Naturopathic herbal medicine, or what we call vitalist herbal medicine, means you're using it in support of the processes of nature cure. Right? And I'll give you an example. The endocrinologists over the last 30 years, but starting in the 90s, they started to recognize an endocrine state called sleep debt. That's when people don't sleep enough. Do you do that like that? Okay. They get elevated stress hormones all the time. They develop insulin resistance. They develop immunodeficiency, right? And they develop cognitive dysfunction. They get dull, get dull-minded, you're tired, right? And so an herbalist might give somebody echinacea for the immunity, give them ginseng for the adrenals, right? You you get where I'm going here? Give them ginkgo for their brain and everything. Okay. A vitalist might assess the sleep, do some sleep coaching, right? Sleep hygiene coaching, like when to turn the lights out, not to exercise too close to bed, sleep hygiene, and then give some simple herbs to support sleep. Not aiming at the results of it, aiming herbs to support the vital processes that will cause the other four things to go away when somebody starts sleeping. The same way, one of the most important interventions, we like to say every herbalist has to be an herbal gastroenterologist, right? Because the digestive tract is the drivetrain of the physiology, right? And so we use herbs lots to help correct people's digestion. And that you sometimes I have given people who say, well, a complicated case, and I'll say, well, here, I'll work on this for the next week, but here, take this peppermint and chamomile tea 20 minutes before each meal, and come back in a week. Now come back and I feel so much better. My mind is clear, and so on, because it all comes up from the digestive tract. So this is, I was emphasizing nature cure and nutrition, but as Heather pointed out, we're all about herbs, right? And when I was younger, I was more dogmatic. Oh, all you need is nature cure, right? And then now I realize, oh my gosh, the whole thing works so much better if you give some herbs to support rest, digestion, etc., to help the person with their chief pain, right? You don't want to say, oh, just endure that pain, endure that pain, right? Until the vital force will cure you in about 40 days and 40 nights, right? So, no, we don't do that. We give people what they need. Okay. All right. So, Heather,
Thank you, Paul.
sorry.
Yeah, no, as you can see, what Paul's describing there is that we focus on a root cause approach, right? Rather than using herbs just to treat symptoms or mask symptoms, we're looking at what's causing those symptoms and how can we support the fundamental processes that correct the whole system, not just mask the symptom, right? Not just turn off the headache. What's causing the headache to begin with? Yeah, so that's a little summary just to recap what Paul so brilliantly said. I will go ahead and just talk a little bit more about our program structure and some of the details of the curriculum. You might be interested. And I do have some notes on that, which I actually have to pull up here. Let me see if I seem to have lost them from my dashboard. Bear with me one second. Yeah, so the flipped classroom model is profound. And so one of the things that Paul did emphasize is that you have the audio part, you get to listen to at home on your own time. You can pause it, you can replay it, you can do it while you're washing dishes and folding laundry. But what that means is that when we come to class time, our live Zoom classes, these are not pre-recorded, they are interactive, supportive, you get direct feedback and questions answered on the spot, no delays. The class time is used for discussion about what's in that material. We get to go a deeper dive. We get to pick it apart and say, well, where does that lecture material apply in the real world? Let's give you some case examples. You'll be reviewing case studies. You get the community support element in that live classroom. When one person asks a question, everyone in the room gets the benefit of the answer to that question. That's a key component to community learning. Someone will always ask a question you didn't think to ask, but it becomes a fire for learning more, and it ignites inspiration for everyone. That's really a fundamental piece. We like to honor and acknowledge that everyone who comes to our classrooms has something to contribute that is valuable to all of our collective learning. So that's the other component of the flipped classroom model. As Paul mentioned, the retention level of material in a standard classroom model is very limited. In this platform, you get the audio lectures, which you can retain more, but then the live class time solidifies that even further. Right? It brings it down to a deeper level of understanding because now you get the applied learning component. I think the retention, the studies have been done that retention of flipped classroom models is more like 80%. And then, of course, you have the audios and the videos for the rest of your life, so you can go review them and you can get up to 100% if you choose. I think part of it is repetition. Nobody learns something by hearing it once. The more you hear a philosophy or a principle, the more it sinks in at a deeper level. And so it might not be the exact same thing that you're hearing repeated over and over. We're trying not to be boring in that aspect, but you learn that same principle in many different case components. Like how does that principle apply for various conditions, various herbs, and so forth. Okay, so I think you get a little bit understanding there about the flipped classroom model, the community learning component, which this is very valuable, the real live interaction. I will also say that with the community learning component, deep bonds are formed in our classrooms. Even though we're online, we have students all over the world. We have all across the country and international students, and it becomes a support network. Some of these students become friends for life. And then you have a place to turn to as an herbal resource in your personal reference library and network. One of the components that's really important for the practice of herbal medicine in vitalist teachings and principles is the applied learning of sampling herbs. So this is not just we're going to teach you an herb and tell you how to use it, or you're going to say, oh, go read about that herb in a book. We want you to experience firsthand how that herb works in your body. This is a big deal because you'll see, you read about an herb in a book and you think, oh, that must be how it works in life. And then you go try it out in practice and you go, oh, the herb didn't do what I thought it would do. Why didn't it make this person better? So this is something that is experiential. This is the sample. How does the herb feel in your body? Is a whole different level of learning. You're learning through experience. This is a much better way to understand the component of sampling and journaling herbs. So you're sampling them. We'll teach you a journaling process that actually helps you to understand what to look for when you're tasting an herb. There's an assessment process there. So we teach you that. And then you also get the benefit of hearing results from your whole class, right? We'll all sample the same herb together in our live Zoom. Sometimes it'll be homework. You'll do it on your own. We'll report in class, or sometimes we'll do it together in our live Zooms. We'll all sample the herb, right? Sit with it, go through the journal step process, and then you get to hear the results, right? You get to hear, well, there's 20 people in the classroom, and well, only 70% of them experienced what the book said, and then another 30% experienced something totally different. We have many cases of where you can see the diversity of how herbs will affect different people in different ways. Some examples, something we've just learned through community learning and sampling and journaling is a passion flower. Passion flower is a wonderful nervine sedative that helps to relax the system. And for some people, it makes them jittery. You'd never know that if you were just reading the book, right? Or valerian. Valerian, another powerful sedative herb. Well, in a certain constitution and a certain type of person, it will keep them awake. It's stimulating. And what are the conditions in which an herb will have an impact on one individual in one way and another individual in a different way. So we have to study in our community learning constitutions, energetics, and we also learn to be observant, to witness the results, right? And not just assume the herb's always going to do what you think it will do. You have to be open to that knowledge. And that actually becomes something that will set you up for lifelong learning, right? You learn how to observe that, oh, this herb might be not the right herb for you. Let's try something else, right? So you learn how.
Yeah.
Um, so this is all components of the applied learning approach. Of course, we'll be giving you case examples, right? So the audio lecture will give you some wonderful philosophy and fundamentals. Some case studies are mentioned in there, but because we have this large teaching clinic, we have many cases to pull from to give you more examples of how to apply what you're learning. And of course, it's not just through studying cases of clinic practice reports. We're also going to be practicing on ourselves. So this is, as Paul mentioned, practicing, some of the lifestyle changes. What does it look like when you're exploring dietary changes in yourself? And then we all get to witness each other's transformation in the classroom. That's the icing on the cake of reward for me. While watching people go, oh my gosh, I started this program and I had digestive issues and I had acne and I had this weird rash, right? And then by the end of the school year, they're saying, oh my gosh, my eczema's gone, my digestion's so much better. I don't have cystic acne anymore. So this is that's a case study right there in your own class, living in front of you. Okay, so we're going to be practicing on ourselves. We're going to be learning from case studies in our clinic. We're going to be sampling and journaling herbs. And I will say a component of how this works is even though we are on an online platform and we have students all over the world, we send you the herbs. So you will be getting a medicine kit in the mail. Sarah Bay is here with us, by the way. You can wave if you'd like. She's our pharmacist and works in our herbal pharmacy. And she's the one who single-handedly packs and ships all those herb kits out to our students. So you will be having the tools and the resources you need to do this. Okay, we support you every step of the way. So that's a little bit more. I will say the rigor and the calling. This is a foundational principle that we want to foster the people who have a genuine calling to step on this path. And I think that if you're signed up to do this today, you were called to be here, right? It's not just like, oh, that sounds nice, or it's trendy, or maybe I could make a lot of money being an herbalist, for some, materialistic thing, value. But no, I have a calling to help people, right? I have a calling. And we want to nurture that calling. The rigor is the part where if you have the calling, your homework is fun, right? It's not like, oh, I have to go read about herbs tonight. Oh, oh gosh, I have to go listen to that audio. No, if this is your calling, if you're passionate about this subject, you're on fire, you're hungry for the knowledge. We want to nurture that. That is an important component of development for your own practice at whatever level you choose to pursue.
I would just like to comment over my many years of teaching these programs.
Mhm.
Every year that I increased the homework load,
Mhm.
right, a certain number of people would say, well, I don't think this is for me, right? And other people would say, finally, I've been wanting to learn this forever, right? And every time I increased the rigor, the outcomes in the clinic got better.
That's right.
Right? So one of my one-liners is if you're in your calling, rigor is like a feast.
Mhm.
If you're not in your calling, rigor is like torture.
Miserable. Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
We are
so
certainly
it's important to know that this is not a fluffy herb school, right? You have lots of homework to do.
substance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The other thing, it's just stuck that I didn't see it. You can listen to that audio while you're commuting.
that's right. And a lot of students do.
And many people do that. People have a long drive or whatever. Um, one woman, she has a school in New England, and I knew she had ordered my audio courses and everything, but as a couple of years went by, and I look, I says like, she, their school looks like my school. they're teaching the same principles. Uh, it really looks familiar. She could have been one of my graduates, and she was on Facebook, and somebody asked her, "Well, how did you learn?" She said, "Oh, well, I mean, she had other teachers, but she said, well, I had ordered all of Paul Bergner's audio courses, and I listened to them while commuting over and over and over again until I could say what the next point was going to be on the tape."
Mhm.
And she got the full thing like that. So this was while commuting. She had a long commute to school and things. So, okay.
Yeah. So, and I want to say too, we're giving you a lot of case examples of clinical practice, and I want to acknowledge that some of our students come to our school, not they're like, I just want to learn this for myself, for my friends, for my family. You know, we have grandmothers that want to take care of their
Good.
children. We're not limited to you developing into a clinical practitioner, but nonetheless, we are providing you with the skill set and the tools that absolutely make you a better community herbalist at whatever level you choose to be. So we want you to understand there is room for upward growth, right? And that's part of the foundation that we're providing here. But that skill set, clinical understanding and concepts are a life skill. And so this is
Exactly.
something
Yeah.
that will apply to you helping your family members and taking care of your loved ones and yourself, right? Your own self healing and self journey. And so there's that. Okay. And then I'm back to the stabilized foundation for upward growth. I'll just mention that I'm going to talk a little bit more about our various programs, what happens in our first year and our second year and our third year programs. But I'm mentioning the foundation piece because our first year program called the Footprints in Medical Herbalism program is I call it an advanced level first year program. It doesn't mean you have to have any prior experience. You can come in knowing nothing. But we also have medical professionals who've already been working in herbal medicine for decades come into our first year program and go, oh my goodness, that flushed out so many holes in my foundation. I had no idea I was missing key critical components in my understanding, and it transforms their practice. So the foundation, right? If you have a real solid foundation, that is what stabilizes your room for upward growth, right? If you build a building on a unstable foundation, it's hard to grow upward. But if you have a real solid, flushed out understanding of vitalist principles, medical herbalism, nutrition, and lifestyle components, you now have the ability, if you choose, to grow upwards. I've heard Paul use the example of the ramshackled house as a model of modern herbal studies. Many herbalists start off just wanting self-study. They take a workshop here, they go to a conference there, they're reading books fervently. And it's a great way to start. And I think you do learn a lot that way. So I'm not discouraging anyone from that model. But what happens is that, it's sort of like you're building a foundation that's got like a 1 footer here, right? And then you try to, okay, I'm going to learn a new piece and I'm going to try to build on a side component over here. And the whole thing isn't cohesive. You're building on side rooms without understanding scope of the whole picture. So the foundation becomes more solid when you have scope of the end result in view. Sort of like architectural design, you want to understand what would a complete building look like before I start building the ground floor. So this is an example to illustrate that we give you a foundation that allows for upward growth that is unlimited in the philosophy and the principles of how we apply herbal medicine, nutrition, vitalist medicine, and so forth. Okay, a little bit of philosophy in there, but you'll understand the point as I get into some of these details.
Let me just comment on the thing you said about this first course is designed with the end result, right? And I would say when I put together the first course, it's called the first course in medical herbalism. I had already been training the end result for 10 years. Right? So I knew what the end result was. I knew how I wanted when my clinician is sitting face to face with somebody, I knew how I wanted them to think. right? And how I wanted them to understand the herbs and how I wanted them to relate, right, in a honorable and respectful way with the other person. And so I put together this thing after doing that advanced clinicians for 10 years. So this has the vision of the whole clinician in it. This is just in the first of the three courses in the Footprints program.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Exactly right. And so you will be learning clinical skills from day one, even if you have never become a clinician or ever have a desire to become a clinician. You're understanding those processes and the principles of how to monitor someone, how to adjust your treatment plan when things are working or not working, so that you can monitor their improvement, or make the improvement something that is actually working for them. So it's a principle and a philosophy, not necessarily like a occupational tag. You can apply it however you choose. Okay. So there it is. Well, in our footprints program, so I'll just talk a little bit about what you will learn in each of these, just overview. The first, of course, is you are going to be learning materia medica through personal experience, right? This is not just about memorizing what's in books, as we mentioned. You will be studying what's in books. And part of learning materia medica, which is your repertoire of herbs, is we have you look at several different resources. So you'll actually write your own materia medica, which is one of the best ways to learn. You will give you resources. We actually give you a whole library. So when you sign up for ACORN, we send you digital files that have PDF text references, worksheets, notes, slides, all the audio lectures. So it's like having a little mini library with all the references that you'll need to complete your homework. But you'll see when you dig into the herbal texts that you can see three or four different authors who talk about the same herb, but everybody says something a little different about the same herb. And sometimes they'll say something that's like opposite, like one person says Mullins demulcent and another person says Mullins astringent. How can that be? Right?
When my students would complain in the first week of school when they're doing those things, I would always say, "Welcome to the world of herbalism. This is reality training." Okay.
So you have to, so you'll be looking at multiple different text references to synthesize, and then you pull out I know so and so says this, and so says this, and this is her sort of a structure of a materia medica. We also teach you how to study an herb, which means you can then study all the herbs in the world for the rest of your life, because there's never ending herbs to learn in the world. I'm still learning herbs. You never stop learning. But then after you sort of kind of synthesize some book knowledge of what, our herbal elders and traditions have to say about a particular plant. We then sample and journal the herb ourselves, right? And then you get a bigger reality snapshot. Oh, I now understand why they have these opposing views because I tasted it and I did see something there that was a nuance, right? And then you'll see it in your classmates, right? Like, why do 30% of the people who sample valerian, it keeps them awake at night rather than put them asleep? So this is the experience. You're adding that to the book knowledge. So you are absolutely going to get some book knowledge, but then you're going to add the experience to that. There's no better way to learn herbs than this particular platform. Okay. Of
Yeah.
course, we've been talking.
Your experience and the experience of your classmate.
Correct.
You
That's
shared
right.
that. Yeah.
That's the community learning component. Yeah, we learn from each other, and that's the book of reality. Okay. Yeah, we've been talking quite a bit about Vitalist Therapeutics since we started this meeting, but to understand that you're not just going to be learning about herbs. Yes, we spend a lot of time talking about herbs. In fact, we use the herbs as sort of the guides to help us dive deeper into Vitalist Therapeutics. I actually like to tell beginning herbalists that herbs are the gateway drug into vitalism. Once you start getting into herbs and understanding how to use them, you start to see how they become much more potent when you apply them in context. So yeah, Paul used the example of sleep. You can have someone who's got chronic fatigue and immunodeficiency, right, and hypertension and brain fog, right, and you could give them herbs for each of those conditions, or you can look at the root cause and coach them on sleep, hygiene sleep practices, therapeutics for sleep, and then apply the herbs to that. That is where the magic happens in practice. So we do set you up with these principles, which become foundational for upward growth in whatever direction you choose to take your career path or your personal path. Okay. Are also in our first year program, we do talk about treatment of acute conditions. So you'll learn how to treat, I think there's a long list, more than 80 different conditions. We will talk a little bit about chronic disease patterns. Mostly chronic diseases are discussed in our advanced program, but you get a taste of it, real taste of it in the first year program. But you'll learn the things like, how to treat urinary tract infections and fungal infections and conjunctivitis and how to take care of your family's uh, febrile conditions, fevers, colds, flus, COVID, whatever the latest pandemic might be that's out there coming around. You get a real skill set in how to work with that. The beauty of it is too, is that once you're starting to engage in this path and your friends and your family all know that you're studying herbal medicine, right? And then it's sooner or later, they start coming to you for advice right from the very beginning. So you're going to be practicing on yourself, but you will get opportunities to practice on the people who are coming to you. It's inevitable. It happens all the time. You also will be learning formulation. So we're not just going to discuss individual simple herbs. We're going to be discussing how to put herbs together to create something that's a real harmonious, constitutionally balanced formula. In fact, when you put multiple herbs together, you're reinforcing actions and they can actually have a stronger effect than using an individual herb by itself, simple herbs. So we'll talk about acute conditions and formulation. We will be talking about medicine making. So this is all of our medicine making is taught in our first year program. I sometimes have students who've done a lot of first year training at other schools and they transfer to an advanced program and they're missing the medicine making component. So I am working on some videos of this for anybody who's got loopholes and just needs to fill in that particular gap. But medicine making is an important part of an herbalist. I do think that any herb medicine you make yourself is a much stronger and better medicine than anything you buy. So you must learn to make your own tinctures. You must learn to make your own oils and salves. You must know how to have these skills because then you are in control of the quality. You understand the dose, the delivery. You're going to learn the different ways to make tinctures, oils and salves. And we don't just limit to tinctures and teas. I think that is something that is very common and sort of standard Western herbalisms. People tend to get tincture focused and their teas, of course, are still there. But we want to bring back some of these historical foundational preparations. So we will be talking about oximals, syrups. You're going to learn how to make honey pastes, cordials, elixirs. These are traditional ways to deliver herbs that are not just, fluffy medicine. They're powerful medicine. So we'll teach you how to make them, how to use them, how to make your tinctures and your nasty tasting herbs more palatable, like delivering a tincture formula in a syrup, right? As Paul mentioned earlier, that's an important strategy to make sure the tinctures get in your clients or in the person you're working with. Of course, salves, oils. There's various methods for making each of these, and you will learn multiple preparations for yourself and development of your own apothecary as well. Okay, so that's just a sort of an overview. On our school website, you can see a more detailed list of class topics. So I didn't include that in today's notes because you can just go to the Footprints in Medical Herbalism page on our website and you can see the list of lesson course material that are covered individually there. So I'm just giving you sort of the overview in this context. And I will say there is a time commitment. So this is one of the things that people come saying, okay, I really want to learn herbs. This is about, I think our Footprints program averages about 10 hours a week. So we do have the two class days. We have two in Footprints. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 1 Pacific time. You have to adjust for your own time zone there. That's 6 hours of live Zoom. I know that's a lot. We actually do, believe it or not, it's fun and engaging. Those hours fly by wicked fast. Because it's inspiring and we're all learning together. And then outside of that class time, there's somewhere around 4 hours a week of homework time, and that includes your hours of listening to the audios and maybe brewing teas or doing your research for writing the Materia Medica projects. So that's collectively, right, between the live class time and the homework time, that's the average time commitment. And I will add to this that students that are not able to attend live, so we have students all over the world. In fact, we have a student from New Zealand who's joining us next term, and the time zone is so difficult that she's not always able to attend live. So we do record every class. We send out the recordings, and you can do the program by just watching the recordings for attendance.
Yeah. Heather, could you repeat the hours for Sarah? Yeah.
It's about 10 hours a week for the Footprints
No,
program.
the hours of the day.
Oh, 10 to 1 on to the class times, you mean? Should I?
She asked Sarah asked about the hours of the week when the
Yeah, so the
yeah.
live Zooms occur on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. Um, and so, but yeah, so you have to adjust for your time zone there. It works out well for like it's afternoon for our East Coast people. We have some European UK students. For them, it's in the evenings. They can kind of do it after dinner. It's their evening time. Um, and of course, if there's some reason you cannot make the live Zoom, you can absolutely do this through watching the recordings and make sure that you have those at the end of every class. Okay. And anything I've said today that wasn't written on my notes, it is on our website. So you can go look at the Footprints page and you can see the schedule is on there. It's all very nicely broken down for you. I can send out a link if anybody needs that. All right, so that's just a sort of an introduction overview of what happens in the first year program. Okay. And as I just to restate what I said before, I've had students who've been studying herbal medicine for over a decade. And they come into our first year program and they become better herbalists. They didn't know what they were missing. They found that their foundation was more flushed out. It transformed their practice, and they started getting better results in the use of their herbs and in their therapeutics. Okay. For those of you who are looking at our advanced program is a whole next level. But I will say at the end of the first year program, you do get certified. So you'll have certified with, I think it's like 450 hours of training in the first year program. In the second year advanced program, this is where we're teaching you clinical skills. We actually call the advanced program our pre-clinical training program. This is where we are studying intake, assessment, case assessment, pattern recognition. And we teach you how to do a 3-hour client intake. I know that sounds like nauseating a lot, but I mean, how many times have you gone to the doctor and you got 5 minutes with them, right? And you told them you had a long list of things you wanted to talk about, and you only got to talk about 1 or 2 of them, and then they send you off. There is something transformative that happens when you get someone's whole health history. Right. And it really does. We teach you a 3-hour intake because it genuinely takes that long to get someone's whole health story. And that's just on the intake. You're just taking that time to get their story. What is their lifestyle? What is their diet? What is their health history? What were their past conditions? What's their occupation? How do all of those factors influence their health? What's their family life? Um,
Yeah, my one liner on that, I have my collection of imaginary bumper stickers that I've never actually made, but holistic medicine means you got the whole story.
that's right. That's
It
right.
doesn't mean you gave vitamin C instead of antibiotics.
That's
It
right.
means you got the whole story.
That's right.
I'd have to tell you, you finish, you get the whole story from somebody. And your best next question is, where do you think we should go from here? And
That's
the
right.
person will automatically, because they put the whole story together, they'll say, I really do need to X, yeah, whatever it is for them. And
That's right.
but
You
but
let
yeah,
the client lead in their own
yeah.
treatment plan. That's an important principle. Um,
And much of the entire training in the advanced program is how to get the whole story.
that's right.
What information you need in order to have the whole story for
Right.
what are the roots of disease. Yeah.
That's right. And I will say that, if you decide to go on to some other method of practice or work in a busy clinic setting, which I've done that myself. I've worked in settings where I'm seeing, 12 clients in a day, and there's no way I could do a 3-hour intake for each one. But once you understand the method and the process of a 3-hour intake, you certainly know where to condense it, right? You know how, okay, I know what key points I need to pull out for this so I can give them something helpful in an hour, right? So it's much more helpful to understand the whole long process and then be able to synthesize it. But if all you learn is the 1-hour intake, you never know how to get the whole story, right? So it's transformative, I will say, just the process of someone sitting and feeling their whole story heard in 3 hours, just that before you give them anything is powerful medicine, right? Just to be witnessed, have someone listen to all the details. When that component has a force behind it, that when you give them a medicine, they're going to take it. They're going to be doing some of the advice and the recommendations that you make. They're going to take it more seriously. That's what happens. And so we call this is our clinical training. You're learning intake skills. You also learn follow-up skills. So I didn't actually put that on there, but you also learn follow-up skills. I'm just going to add that right now, because that is important. The intake is just where you get the story. The follow-up is where you get to see the results of your work. And Paul says it's all follow-up, all theoretical until the first follow-up. Sometimes it's all theoretical till the third or fourth follow-up. You need to get some miles down the road to really understand, oh, where is this working? Where is it not working? What's the hindrance to this? Let's find your obstacles and what can I do to help you overcome them? How can I modify this to make it fit within your world? So this is the ushering of transformation by holding someone's hand and walking that path with them. So in that process, of course, in clinical skills, you'll be learning case assessment. This is understanding like constitutional conditions. We do talk a little bit about tongue and pulse, but you're learning more about energetics. Uh, you also learn pattern recognition, disease patterns, not just, how to treat a migraine, but what are the root causes of the migraine. You'll learn nutritional deficiency patterns. You'll learn disease patterns, and you'll learn to see them from a holistic standpoint, not just tunneling on the processes, but what is the greater context that's producing those processes? How is the body manifesting the diseases so we can get to the root of it? Oh yeah, here I do have follow-ups on there. I'm overlooked myself. So yes, you learn a lot about the follow-up process and how to help clients evolve. And it is a relationship. This is clinical skills, our relationship skills. You're evolving, you're developing with them. And it takes 3 hours to get someone's whole health story, but it also takes 3 hours to really bond with someone where you feel trusted, right? I will say there's also something very rewarding about being an herbalist is being someone's trusted herbalist, right? Someone says, I've been working with Heather Luna for 10 years. Whenever I have an issue, I go to her. That's like, oh, an honor, right? Say, you're a trustee because you've built the relationship. You took the time and the investment to put a foundation to say, I'm here for you, I support you, and these are my tools to be here. So they'll refer people to you. That's actually when you build that kind of bond, that's how a practice explodes, right? Word of mouth. You help a few people, and then those few people go out and tell all their friends, and that's how practices are built. Okay. Chronic diseases. So the big smattering overview of advanced is you're really learning the details of clinical skills and you're learning how to work with chronic diseases. And I didn't go into the list of all the chronic disease patterns here because this is the overview, but on our website, there is the advanced program page. It's Advanced Herbalism in the Vitalist Tradition, I think is the name of that program specifically. And we're going to talk about the roots, of course, of chronic fatigue, insulin resistance, which is the diabetes, hypertension. There's a whole smattering of diseases that come within insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome, as it's more commonly known. We're going to be talking about liver patterns, liver detoxification, the whole liver concept. It's a very large module. Also, you're going to be learning about, we talk about thyroid conditions. And so you'll get a nice overview of how to work with things that are beyond acute, where you're going to have to do long-term treatment plans to correct them. We have beautiful case examples from our clinic to pull from and show you how it works in the real world. It's not just all hypothetical. Um, of course, we spend a lot of time talking more about nutrition. So yes, we do teach some nutrition and vitalist therapeutics in the first year program, but you get a whole lot more of it in the advanced program. We actually have 3 weeks of study just on nutrition. So it's not just like a side thing. It's a core piece of the processes. Vitalist therapeutics. We also have whole modules on correction of sleep debt and all the disease patterns that manifest from sleep debt, how to treat someone for that at a root cause level. I think that's a general gist of what's in there. And you know, the study of herbs never ends. If you're a dedicated servant of the earth and plant lover, you want to keep looking at plants for the rest of your life. There's nothing better than keeping your nose in the flowers and in the plants, and you want them in you, on you, around you. It's just you want to eat, breathe, and sleep herbs. You're going to get a deeper level of materia medica in the advanced program, and also advanced formulation, where you start to learn how to build really complex formulas that are artistic and sophisticated, not just like, you know, this person has 5 different conditions. I'm going to put one herb in for each of their conditions, right? You start to look at what is the pattern of the person, what is the root cause, and how can I sophisticatedly put together a cohesive formula that's addressing the roots, that's supporting the vital processes of the body. So we get into that. That's sort of a general overview. I will say that this is also a transformative experience. Many of our students do the advanced program, and they find transformations in their own health. When you finish the advanced program, by the way, you are technically certified as a clinical herbalist. You will get a little piece of paper that says clinical herbalist. The total program hours for this, I believe, is around just shy of 500. The number is exactly on the webpage. And the time commitment for this program is about 12 hours a week, and that is both the live class time and the homework time. Advanced program meets live on Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to there's 2 blocks. We do a morning block and an afternoon block. It's a longer day. So we do 11 to 1 a.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sorry, that's Pacific time. So that's our 2-hour morning block. We take a 1-hour break because no one can stare at a Zoom screen for 4 hours, even if it's as fun as our classes are. And then we come for our afternoon block from 2 to 4 p.m. That's, again, Pacific time. So it's
Can I make a comment? You were talking about the formulation.
yes,
Our philosophy on diet is how to find not what's the correct diet, what's the correct diet for this person, right? In the same way with formulation, we teach you a
right.
skill set. This is a dying art. The skill set is I'm going to make a formula for this patient.
Mhm.
Not, this is my formula for migraine. No,
Right.
this is my formula for this patient
That's
who
right.
has a migraine, right? And you may never have 2 patients where you have the same formula, right?
Exactly.
So it's the same way, the individualization of the diet, the individualization of the formula. We teach you that skill set. This is from time, ancient time immemorial. That was the art of of formulation was what's my you finish the case intake, these are the parameters. Now I'm going to put together, I may have a basic archetypal formula, but here I'm going to modify it for this person. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for adding that important.
That's a professional skill set. It's a
Important.
life skill set, but okay, all right.
Yeah. Um, so yes, custom formulation, individualized, very, very specific, tailored. It is a bigger time commitment. So I've the 4-hour Zoom Wednesdays, we have 4 hours of live class time, and then on average, outside of class time per week, it's like 6 to 8 hours of homework outside of the class time. So that's how I come up with the 12 hours per week on average. And again, there's some weeks are a little less than that, you know, and then sometimes students just they want to do more homework because they're hungry for it. So I never discourage anyone from doing that. You're just like, I'm hungry, I'm into it. You can spend unlimited time if you have the availability, but this is just to actually do the curriculum as we present it. That's the dedication that you'd be committing to. Okay. We do have a third year program, which I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about because, well, first of all, we are running out of time, but third of all, we want to see students do our advanced training. We want the preclinical training. Oh, the other thing that's in the advanced program, by the way, is you get to actually practice. So we want you to, you're going to learn the clinical skills, the interview skills, and the follow-up skills. And part of a major project that sort of happens in the background besides the individual modules that we'll be studying is you're going to right off the bat, you're going to go get yourself a client and practice the interview. And then you're going to practice writing up the case. So you see a case report that tracks the client and their whole case experience. And then we review it in our advanced program collectively as if it was a mini round table, right? Where everyone's going to write a report on their practice client, and then everybody reads each other's reports, and we all learn from each other's case experience. So you do get a taste of that in the advanced program, and it's very important for us to do that. So I think the projects are 2 practice intakes plus a follow-up for each one. So you understand the interview process and the follow-up process for 2 clients throughout the whole throughout the whole advanced program. And the reason is because our clinic program, which we call a roundtable program, is we're not giving you clinical training in this program. You've already got the clinical training. We're giving you clinical experience in this program. This is where you will be working in our free clinic with students, with clients all over the world. We have an online clinic. We have clients, a wide client base. It is an international based client offering now, free clinic. And this is where we pair you with clients and you just get the hours of experience. Every week we come to class and discuss the caseload. We give you support. So you get for direct mentorship, faculty supervision and support with feedback on every case so that you are then very equipped to go do this on your own. I would say, you are technically, receive a piece of paper that says you're a certified clinical herbalist at the end of our advanced program, but until you have the hours of experience, you don't quite get the clinical herbalist experience. It's the hours down the road that build confidence, that builds a broader scope of understanding. So this is a whole nother level. I don't generally let people just transfer into our clinical program because we want everyone working with the same toolkit. So anyone who's transferring for our clinical skills, which is a common request for us, we want them to do our understanding of how to do an intake, how to do assessment, our understanding of vitalist therapeutics, and know that as a skill set before they enter our clinic. And this is valuable, 600 hours of clinical experience. That is, the more hours, the better. Learning is not something you just get from reading cases. Learning is something you get from experience of practice, right? So that's what that offers for you. For anyone who's concerned in considering the clinic. Here are some just generally frequently asked questions. If anybody has questions to add to the list today, we can talk about them. I just generally, the first thing, I'll start with this question here. Can I earn a degree or what will I be qualified to do with an herbalist certification? So that's a big topic. And since we are down to just 10 minutes, I'd like to focus on that topic the most. I will say that you do earn a certificate after each one of our programs. Herbal medicine in North America is not a regulated profession. There is a level at which you could go to a university and you can get a degree in herbalism, but most of those schools are not teaching the clinical skills. They're teaching you things like chemistry and medicine formulation, medical herbal sciences, constituent-based learning. It's not something that generally what happens in herbal practice today is the degrees that are offered are out there that I've seen so far, unless there's something new, aren't offering the clinical training that actually gets the results that Paul has just been speaking so elegantly about, and the kinds of results that we see in our clinic. So I have to say, we can't offer you a legal degree. There's no our school is not regulated by, and no herb school in North America is regulated. What you get, and that's what I'm trying to say, that publicly it doesn't mean much in the federal world, but at the level of the herbal community, the certificates and the experience that you gain in our programs is what holds the weight. It's not the piece of paper, it's the training, it's the hours of experience, how fluent and comfortable you feel working with someone. So, herbalists that are certified through our school certainly can go practice. I see them go start, pop-up clinics, doing things like first aid relief at festivals or at activist events. I see them, of course, starting their own product lines, making medicines and selling those to the public. We see our first year students even going out and starting their own practice, working right away. Many of our students go on to become teachers. It's such an honor to see that the teachings being passed on through our student community. So you absolutely have the skill set and the ability to practice at whatever level you would like. But as far as hanging a shingle that says, I am a licensed medical herbalist, I don't believe that exists in North America. That does in some other countries. In fact, New Zealand is one of those countries. Paul, do you want to add anything to this discussion here on the topic of?
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing because I've been doing this for a long time. And two pieces of education are the piece of paper you get
Mhm.
and the skill set you get,
Right.
right? And you can get a college diploma and not get a skill set,
Right.
not get much of a skill set.
Exactly.
So I've told ever since I started teaching, I says, I'll teach you the skill set of herbalism and natural vitalist healing, right? You'll have that skill set. But because of historical and economic conditions and things, the piece of paper you get is a certificate, but it is an educational certificate. It certifies that you had this education. I'd like to say you can go to truck driver school and you'll get a truck driving certificate, but that's not a driver's license.
That's
Right?
right.
So this is an educational certificate, but they don't have driver's licenses for herbalists in North America, right? uh, anyway, skill set. So the I wanted to say another a view of education is I'd say the three stages of education are number one is learning tools, terms, and concepts. Let's do the gardening model. This is a rake, this is a hoe, this is soil, this is fertilizer, this is compost or whatever. Heather knows more about gardening than I do, so I'll probably say something wrong. But uh, okay, tools, terms, and concepts. And then you learn applied tools, terms, and concepts, right? This is how to use them, da, da, da. This is how to measure the soil pH and whatever, right? So applied. But then the third piece would be practice gardening, right? So you could, everything else is preparatory until you start to do your own garden, right? And then you do that or do many gardens, right? So do you see the parallel? We teach the tools, terms, and concepts of vitalist medicine and medical herbalism, clinical nutrition. We teach the tools, terms, and concepts. We teach applications in acute and in chronic conditions, and then you practice in the clinic. But remember, let's come back. You're already getting gardening experience in the first week of the first program when you pass around an herb and people say what it did.
Mhm.
You're getting that gardening level practical experience in the community learning setting throughout the entire education while you're there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. That's right. So there you have it. I think that having something that says you've been trained in several hours of herbalist teachings, it does hold a lot of weight in our herbal community, but really it's the experience and the practice, as Paul said. Um, so the last two questions, which I can answer real quickly, people do often ask how many students are going to be in class because it is a community. It's different every year. On average, our first year program has about 20, so like 24, 21, somewhere around 20 students. Sometimes we've had, small, like 18. So it can vary. But I like the smallness of that. I don't like these classes where it's hundreds of people because it keeps it intimate. It means that there's room for us to have these discussions and form a bond as a student body. And it gives you more direct attention, a little bit more of one-on-one time within classes as well. So that's a considerably small class size. And then in advanced programs, even smaller, we usually have somewhere around 18 students, 15 to 20 is the range, so somewhere in there. And then the people who go on to clinic, it's actually even smaller. We have somewhere around 6 to 8 clinicians every year. And it's sort of kind of like as the year the programs go up, the class size gets smaller and smaller. It becomes more intimate. And I think by the time you're in clinic, it feels like you're working with a very close, intimate group with a lot of feedback and direct support. So that's that. And then my last question, people always want to know if they can transfer into our programs from other schools. And yes, you can. It's case-based. So it really does depend. So if you have questions about that, let me know. Depends on, where you went to your school. If you want to come directly into our advanced program, absolutely. I have no qualms. Just need to know what your previous skill sets are. We like to see people who come into our advanced program, the core things that you must have, medicine making. I don't teach that in the advanced program. That's all covered in our first year program. We've got to have that skill set. The acute treatment of acute conditions, that's all covered in our first year program, and basic materia medica, as well as a general understanding of vitalist principles. So those are the nuggets that I want to see people have before they come into our advanced program. And then as far as coming into our clinical program, I prefer I've made some very rare case exceptions. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I really want people to have our advanced clinical skills training before they come into our clinic because I want everyone working with the same medicine chest, the same toolkit, and the same skill set so that we're all together on the same page as we're working with a cohort of clients that are coming through our door. With that said, I want to make another little opening here. I know people come from all walks of life, all places of diversity. And I want to offer that if anyone's interested in our programs and you just have more questions or concerns, financial concerns, please talk to me. I'm very flexible and negotiable. I'm dedicated to I am the midwife of the school. I really just wipe butts and change diapers. I'm here to be your humble servant. So that's what I do. I am sorry for the bad terminology. That's probably not the best, but my job is to be your cheerleader. My job is to support you on your mission. So whatever you need, if you're called to do this, if you're passionate about this, if you're screaming yes inside the core of your bones, please reach out to me and I will bend over backwards to help you and make this work for you. So if you have a financial concern, talk to me directly. You can just shoot me an email. You can set up a private meeting with me and I will be happy to assist you. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have questions?
There is a question here in the chat
Yeah.
from the name is cut out. Oh, Fernanda, and it says, "Does the programs include the science, or is it only tradition?" Oh my God, yes, it's
Yeah,
science. Luis didn't describe the four directions model.
I know. We
Um,
should have gotten there.
our model of learning, and it's the model of the education, is that well, you're in the middle, right? And you're going to say, well, it's just okay. What are the ways of knowing? Number one of the ways of answering a question, let's start with what should I eat, right? How do I answer the question, what should I eat? You can say, what did my ancestors eat, right? What did people eat in the past? What are traditional diets? What are like that? One way of knowing is, we'll call
Tradition.
this the North, right? Is what was done in the past, right? Now, another way of knowing is, well, how does it work when I eat this? That's direct experience, right? So we'll say that's the South, right? The North is how they did it in the past. The South, oh, that's direct experience. Right now in this generation, that's community learning. You're learning in the South, right? It's direct experience, people's direct experience. Okay. Another way of knowing is, oh, what is not from the past or whatever, what's new information coming into the field? Um, and an example is, say, North American herbalism has been had a lot of Chinese medicine principles have leaked into it over the past two generations, right? And so that's new. But the big thing that's new in the world of nutrition and our world is science, right? All this scientific information coming in here, right? And so we call that the East, right? And then what's the West? What's left? Instinct and intuition.
Mhm.
How can you know by instinct and intuition, right?
Well, you forgot the South, Paul.
I said the South, direct
Oh, you,
experience.
oh, your
Yeah.
personal experience. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, personal direct experience is the South. So, uh, so what we say, and the education is each one of those ways of knowing is a legitimate way of knowing, and each one has potential flaws.
Right.
Each way of knowing needs a certain kind of critical thinking, right?
Mhm.
So if this is in an old book, right? Okay, can you just grab what's out of old books? Well, no. That was I like some of our herbals from the 1800s. That's when everybody ate large amounts of organic meat and vegetables. And there was no such thing as pesticides, and the sugar trade hadn't entered into the daily diet,
We
right?
didn't have technology and
Right.
electric
So
light.
that's critical thinking. Does that apply today? Right. And also, did this author just copy from someone who copied from someone who copied from someone who copied from someone? Right. So there are potential flaws there. Okay. In the South, your direct experience. Um, okay, my direct experience, was that a unique experience for me? Or are other people going to experience that? Do I overgeneralize something that I only saw once? Right? So you need a critical thinking, and you also need really good education on the placebo effect, what placebo is, right? And by the way, as vitalists, we love the placebo effect. You get healing for free without side effects, right? So okay, we and one of my bumper stickers is maximize the placebo effect, right? And you can do this is one of your clinical skills. Speak to somebody with confidence.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen this. We've seen this dozens. We cure this routinely. You could give somebody a placebo and they might get better with that kind of expression. This is true. That's measured, right?
And Paul, you are one of the most brilliant understanders of scientific literature that I know of. I just want to make the important direct answer to this question that you're going to get a really nice understanding of science and how to understand and approach science without it pedestalizing it or demonizing it. You want to look at it squarely. Where is its flaws and where are its benefits and how is this applicable to my practice?
Okay, let me just say about me and science. I I didn't quite graduate from college, but almost with a pre-med degree. I did was admitted to a naturopathic medical school with the amount of education I had. I have 50 semester hours of doctoral level medical studies at a medical school, right? In 1988, I did a weekend seminar and I was trained in how to search the literature at the National Library of Medicine, right? And pull down scientific articles, right? And I had enough medical education to understand them. I've been reading scientific articles on speed dial ever since 1988. And I have enough education to skill set to investigate into a field, right? So, and I have investigated into, I'm just my personal things, the whole area of insulin resistance and the whole area of food intolerance and immunology. I've done the equivalent of doctoral level studies in those on my own, pouring into them. And a lot of what you have, the courses you have in here on chronic infections, on biofilms, on metabolic disorders, right, on food intolerance and autoimmunity, those are all science-based.
Mhm.
They're all completely science-based, right? So, but so, okay. And we do also have there is a critical thinking in the direction of science. Let me describe the problem with that four directions, right?
Can
Is
can you synthesize it and keep it short? Because we are over
Yes,
time.
very much. The modern conception is that science is the center of reality, right? The past is guilty until proven innocent. The South is unreliable placebo, and instinct and intuition, lunacy,
Right.
right? That's our paradigm, right? In other words, science, through vested interests, right, has pulled a coup on the center of the four directions, right? And we need to restore the center of the four directions where you can take in information. I have had cases where the cure came from my intuition.
That's right.
I had one time, I'm talking to a student on the phone. My intuition went, "Oh my God, what am I going to tell the district attorney when she dies and they blame me?" I go, uh-oh, we better go over there. And she was going into a heart arrhythmia from chronic diarrhea. And we called 911 and got her to the hospital. Totally intuition saved her life.
That's
Okay,
right.
so, all right. And also, you couldn't get through your day from one end to the other without your intuition
That's
and
right.
your instincts, you know. Anyway, that answers the question about science. I'm telling you, I'm, yeah.
You're going to get science. I do want to move on to the rest of these questions for anyone who's still interested in hearing them. The 800 hours in the first 2 years, do they give you all the necessary knowledge to be a clinical herbalist? They give you the skill set. Yes, absolutely. You know, I've been practicing in clinical herbalism for over 25 years and I never stop learning. So I will tell you the knowledge is never done. I'm sure Paul still learns himself to this day. I see it sometimes.
The
So
principle of medical
but
education is
the
written
principles,
into laws. The principle is entry level competency with regard to safety,
exactly
right?
correct. You get the
So,
skill set.
yes, you have entry level competency, and that's why they say people practice medicine, right? Because they
That's
practice it and
that's
they're learning
correct.
from
We're
their
correct.
follow-ups, right?
That's
But
right.
with attention to safety. And yes, definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too. But I will say that you do get for the first two programs, you get the skill set, you get the principles, you know how to go forth and continue to learn for the rest of your life. We teach you how to learn and how to think so that you can continue that lifelong journey on your own. And then the clinical program gives you an extra 600 hours of actual clinical practice, which, man, that solidifies everything. That's like traction on your path. I see any other questions? I see one more question. Students are encouraged to read before tasting and noticing their experience or to taste and note before reading. Oh, when we're tasting and sampling herbs, you do a little bit mix of both. I know there are sometimes you come to an herb and you have like a preconceived notion about it because you've read about it. That might influence your tasting experience. We discussed that. We also do sometimes what's called blind tasting. So it might be an herb you already know that you've never sampled before. We'll talk about blind tastings. But in general, we wanted when we're sampling herbs, yes, we want to have some understanding of safety. That's the most important thing. And we set a safety check. So before you sample and journal an herb, you better know when it's not safe to use. Right. So we do want you to understand contraindications, like, if you're pregnant, right, we're not going to give you an emmenagogue, right? That's we say you can skip that sampling in class, okay? Or you're on a medication and an herb is cut. We'll talk about the safety before you sample. Otherwise, you can certainly sample an herb without reading about it ahead of time. And you can read about an herb before you sample it. It can go both ways, and we want you to experience both ways. It will actually develop your skill set. So I hope that answers that question. And then contraindications. Now with herbs, there's a lot more known about contraindications. Seen some of it in your nursing students, friends' homework. Yes, contraindications and safety are a major component of the way that we teach materia medica. There's actually not a lot of herb books, modern day herb books that discuss cautions, safety, and contraindications. And it's a component that we are very focused on. So yes, you will learn that. We teach you how to sleuth for that and resources for that. And in our first year program, we teach that. But then in our advanced program, we actually have a whole herbal safety module. So we'll spend a couple of weeks just going deep dive into herbal safety. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Anything else? All right. Otherwise, if you want to meet with me and have a private chat about, whatever financial concerns or more specific things that would apply to you, you can set up a meeting with me. Oh, registration closes soon, Marcy. I'm glad you asked that question. Um, uh, both the Footprints and Advanced programs deadline is, I think, the 26th and 27th. So it's about 10 days away. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the deadline for registration, but classes actually don't start until 2 weeks later. We always close the registration 2 weeks prior to the start date because we're an online school. There's sort of a delay because we have to send you the digital downloads of course materials. We also send you a physical medicine kit. So it takes us 2 weeks to sort of orchestrate getting you everything you need. So we want sort of the all the students lined up in their little spots before we start sending goodies out, making sure that you have what you need to be prepared for the first day of class. People often want to know how how does it run? It runs like a regular school year. So we do start, like a university. We start in September and we end at the end of May. And then we do have holidays and breaks in there that's very similar to a university schedule. So you have like a fall break and a winter break and a spring break, take off major holidays and so forth. So it's pretty well mapped, just like a regular school year. All right. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you so much for your being here and enjoy your journey wherever it takes you. All right.